Well, I'm going to skip, because we'll leave a lot of this in. I'm going to skip the usual intro and save everybody my Patreon rant. But if you do want to support patreon.com/Nordic Mythology podcast, just saying, but I'm going to skip it. And let's just get into today's show. Obviously, Mathias was going to join us, but Balder has had an electrical outage.
I was about to say, I was like,
outage? Right?
It's
yes,
an electrical power. Yeah, because if it's just a power outage,
could be multiple.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And that is the. And
on today's episode, we will be discussing English grammar.
Yeah.
Thank God, because I thought it was going to be Old Norse some history, something with Mathias, but no.
So yeah, Mathias was going to join us, and we were going to talk about his new book. We will postpone that, but we had planned to have a mystery person come and gate crash the episode, have a little bit of a fun, festive, probably not so historically accurate episode, but
I wouldn't say historically accurate, more historically inclined.
Yeah,
it's just a chat.
Just a nice chat between three people. A recurring guest, which is Ed Gamester. You heard his voice already. A huge fan favorite.
All right, we
show.
Haven't started the episode yet.
Well, no, we have. We're going to keep the bit in before. This is the intro 20 minutes in to the chaos.
Actually, this is the highlight reel.
This is so we booked this episode literally yesterday. Then it all collapsed, but thankfully
it didn't all collapse. Matthias just had a power outage, and we had to pivot.
The collapse of infrastructure. Now,
Dan, you're being very dramatic.
Now, thankfully, every episode that Ed is on is chaotic, so it suits perfectly. I don't know why you're frowning. That's true.
I think I get set up, man.
You recorded from a van once, and then also shouted at one of our patrons because he left his microphone on.
I think I urinated once during the podcast. That might have been the van one, actually.
I assume it probably was,
but it went on too long.
Well,
sometimes you just gotta pee.
Well, I'm glad that I can step in and attempt to fill the boots of Dr. Mathias, who, if he knew anything about Norse mythology, would have known that Balder was going to get taken out.
So, that's a nice one.
Thank you. That's why you hire me as your backup, because I've got those mythological references combined with not humor, but something vaguely resembling humor.
English sarcasm.
Yeah. Obviously, you have your amazing Mythos Ragnarok show, which we are going to touch on because you're doing is it just a UK tour? Are you going into Europe again?
It's a tour of 7 different countries, Dan. 7.
I knew that. I was leading the guest.
He's good at this, Mags.
Yeah.
He should have a podcast.
I also been lying. I might not have.
It's like he's been doing it for a while. I don't know.
I only found out about this recently. Yeah, we're going to tour the UK in March and April. We're starting at the Ostara. You may have heard of Ostara. We will be in London, and then we're going to tour around the UK at various places. And then in the autumn, we're going to be across Europe in Germany and Poland and the Czech Republic and the Netherlands and Switzerland and Austria.
Mm-hmm.
And probably somewhere else that I've now just insulted terribly by forgetting. Yeah.
And for those who... Unfortunately, this is their first introduction to Ed Gamester. What is Mythos Ragnarok? Because I can see people popping in from... I see like the numbers at the top of the screen. I see people obviously see the YouTube introduction that says intro into Old Norse Mythology with Dr. Mathias Nordic, and they're coming in and then they're listening to us for a few minutes and they're disappearing. But for those people,
for those
people who are sticking around, what is Mythos Ragnarok.
Okay. What was Matthias meant to be doing? An intro to Norse mythology.
He was going to be talking about his book,
Yes, an intro into Old Norse mythology.
All right,
which
cool.
is the title of his book.
I'll just do that. Mythos Ragnarok, on the other hand, is in fact an introduction to Old Norse mythology through the medium of theatre and professional wrestling. So if you can imagine the Norse gods being played by professional wrestlers, and I know that already you're now thinking that sounds like the best thing ever, and you're correct. It is, and I did it, so hands off, it's mine. You can come to see it all around the world. I currently play the character of Loki, which doesn't seem to surprise anybody, which is slightly annoying, because I played Odin for 2 years, which is much more severe. So yes, come and see that. It is, in fact, an introduction to Old Norse mythology. It's not in the form of a book, it's in the form of a play. We will tell you the myths, but more than that, we will perform them for you, and you will live them with us. So in many ways, much better than a book.
To be frank.
Failing power outage.
But it is an introduction for some people, because there will be some people, I imagine, that come to see the show who are wrestling fans, or just maybe are in a certain town and they see a show and they're like, I'm going to go watch that. And then maybe they get introduced into this, just like people who watch Vikings TV show or a movie. It does have that to it. You are bringing people into this world. Big time. Yeah. We get lots of people who love their Norse mythology who come along to the show. And because the show is my own interpretation of the myths, it's a nice reimagining of it anyway. So even if you've seen every possible incarnation of Norse mythology already and you're bored of the stories, our version is a whole different one where I've taken a lot of the key mythology and woven it together into one storyline from the beginning of the world to the end to try and, explain how some of these things happen. You see, I was not surprised to learn that Balder went down because
we should have seen it coming, actually.
Unlike
certain other people.
The spear, the dart. Yeah, so there you go. It is our own introduction to Norse mythology. You should see it. You should see it. Do you get, or do you suffer from those people who? No, do you suffer from those people who want everything to be how they feel is accurate? Do you ever get those messages? Because I feel like it is the kind of community where they would be like, love the show, but feel like you need to know that actually didn't happen. Yeah, that's not how it was. You know what? No. Obviously, people that hate the show aren't going to stick around, right? But after the show, I always come out I've done it 250 times now, all over the world. Jeez. I always come out afterwards and spend an hour or so meeting people from the audience just to find out what they thought. And obviously, they're not going to stick around if they hate me. So it's quite a biased cross-section of the audience. But yeah, generally speaking, they prefer to see that I've changed some things and shaken it up a bit to make it interesting. I don't think anyone thinks that I have misunderstood or got it wrong, or that I'm kind of perverting it. I think they do that with things like Marvel, where Marvel just kind of like grabs onto the names and the mythology and then uses it to tell stories that have nothing to do with the mythology. Whereas we quite clearly are rooted in the myths, and then we change things here or there to make it a little bit more interesting or an alternative interpretation. But it's very clearly like a labor of love regarding the actual mythology, rather than just being like, oh, Loki and Thor, you've heard of them, buy a ticket. And then it's just like a musical or something fucking tedious. Yeah. Oh no, now I've annoyed the musical people. Oh.
You're bound to bother someone.
They had like 200 years.
They just got Wicked. They should be happy.
Yeah, they did. And they got Lord of the Rings at one point. God, look, can you imagine?
Yeah. Jeez. They've
got Lord of the Rings is still to a musical.
And also, meaning like when you come into like a musical, this isn't a musical, but like more musically, there's if you have an issue with like Viking Age inspired stuff, there's Wagner, and that's problematic to say the least. So I think you're good.
Thanks.
Oh, can you imagine can you imagine the outrage of a certain group of people if they made a Viking musical and they
already did.
They wore tights and
they already did. They made one. I can't remember what it was called, and if I could, I wouldn't probably be allowed to say it. But I saw it. It was at the Edinburgh Fringe a few years back, and they didn't even go so far as to have tights down. She was just in jeans.
Was it a comedy show though?
No, it was meant to be serious.
Was
it
a comedy
so much
accidentally?
I mean, I didn't go and see it. It could have been brilliant. It could have flown in the face of all of its reviews and actually been good, but let's assume, based on the response, that it wasn't. I mean, I've never heard of it again, so
okay.
I just think that some things, Dan, cannot be expressed through song, or should not be expressed through song. You know,
I feel like a Vikings West End show. That could be cool. I could get on board with that.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be a musical just because it's on the West End, right?
That's true. No, that's
when we're in the West End, we'll be the Viking. Although that's the one, actually, Dan, you asked me, do people get weirded out about? They go, it's not really Viking, though, is it? And yeah. Because it's like Norse mythology. They're like, well, the Norse people were Christian. So Norse mythology would be Jesus.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I think you might be
famously.
Yeah, I think you're maybe pushing it a little bit there. It's because often, right, the general public, if you say Norse mythology, they don't necessarily understand what that is. So sometimes it helps to be like, yeah, like Viking mythology, Thor, because then they're like, oh, the stories of Thor and Loki and things. They get it then. So it's just we call it that when we're trying to explain it to people. Like, you have to talk to human beings in this industry, unfortunately. So,
what a downer.
Well, I had it the other day with the mead we just released, because obviously I've been selling mead for ages. We've sold it at shows. So we've got tons of feedback from people on the questions they ask. Like, by far the biggest question, what is mead? Does it have honey in it? Like, that is what people ask. So when we designed the labels, we put traditional honey mead. So straight away people know it's got honey in it. Like, yeah. So I posted a picture online, and there was from like one of the little, because there are some mead groups, and I posted in there.
I'm sure.
And one of like the mead enthusiasts was like, "Oh, it's a bit reductive because all mead is honey." And I'm just like, yeah, but
my dude,
you know that, but the reason is we're trying to sell this on a shelf where maybe people don't know what mead is, and it helps. But you get that group of people who are purists that don't, like, they know, but they don't quite appreciate that you're not selling just to them. You're selling to the people.
Sometimes you're too in the group to realize what isn't, automatically knowable for people outside of the group.
Yeah. And also, generally speaking, those people are proud of themselves because they have a better than average understanding of something. Mm-hmm. So to imply that it's weird that you don't cater to them exclusively, being a niche, is insane. It's like, we're trying to sell a thing, whether it's mead or stories or whatever. If they're only being sold to people who already love mead and stories, then what's the point that those people are already drinking mead and listening to our stories? You have to try and bring new people in and build an audience, which everyone thinks is a nice thing until you try and do it. And then they're like, don't bring other people in. It's just
without
us.
It's like that band you like when they sell out.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting,
I like Green
because
Day when they only release basket case.
Yeah.
They sold out by then.
Yeah, maybe. Sorry, Max.
No, I was just going to say that I feel like without speaking to people's actual intelligence, I feel like there's a certain type of Dunning-Kruger effect within interest groups, because if you're passionate enough about something, but you don't really push it further or extend your knowledge past a certain point, you're still at that one side of the Dunning-Kruger scale where you're you think you know everything, so you're super strict and kind of gatekeepy about it, and you think you know better than everyone else. But if you're passionate enough or interested enough that you really, really get sucked into it and you know a lot, for example with with the wrestling and Norse mythology and mead and everything, all different niches, then you kind of understand how much you don't actually know and how you have to accommodate to make it understandable for people outside the group, which is
right?
It's interesting.
Yeah, it keeps you humble because you're like, well, there's always going to be a bunch of people that know more than me, but also none of us were born being into mead. At some point, something had to happen that got you into mead or mythology because somebody else reached out to people that didn't know about it and got you involved in it. So this happens with wrestling all the time as well. Like wrestling people, 90% of them got into wrestling when they were children. So, and then
attitude era.
Yeah. And then they grow up and they're like, oh, bit childish this. You're like, yeah. Remember, because you got into this when you were a child. It's for children primarily. And then they grow up and they're like, well, it's weird that wrestling hasn't catered to me as I've aged. Just like films as well. We all got into them.
Me specifically.
People are like, wow. Yeah. Oh, God, I'm so old now.
I don't know. You're still throwing yourself around.
Less and less.
However many.
I cut my hair off, though. Look, it's all gone.
Looks good.
I noticed that. You look good.
Thanks. I noticed that you look good. I wondered what was what. Thanks.
No, you. I think you'd cut it off the last time.
On the last part, had I?
So, no, not the last podcast.
No.
I've seen you with it short, though, I think.
Well.
Unless I've just seen you online with it short and I'm just...
I think it might be that. I think this is the world we live in, Dan, is we haven't seen each other for years. You're like, yeah, last time. Last time I looked at your face on my phone.
No, last time we saw each other was in York. That was last year, right?
That was in February, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't have short
this
hair.
Year?
Yeah. No,
okay, yeah, so I've seen you this year.
July. Yeah.
Timeline still doesn't add up though, Dan, because like you said, hair wasn't short.
No, I've seen you. Okay, I've seen you online with short hair. I accept.
Still counts as seeing though. You used your ocular devices.
You did see me. That's true. Or a version of me that I airbrushed and put on the internet for people to enjoy. It was necessary, man. There just wasn't enough of it to go around anymore, so I had to consolidate it on the top.
Oh,
but you know what? Blame the wrestling. I think that
the stress, Dan. Blame the stress.
Yeah, you think the stress?
Of course, I think the stress. Have you tried single-handedly producing a theater show in this age of corporate bullshit remakes of nonsense no one wants? It doesn't work.
No.
So, I'm blaming you.
So, in other words, you're doing great?
So well.
Well, we spoke about this yesterday. Obviously, we had a nice phone call. And it is a long-time listeners to the show will remember me going to the first show and being like, oh my God, it was fantastic. I loved it. You've been a reoccurring guest on here so many times. We've done the Drunk Havamal, the Drunk Odin episodes. We've done story times. We've done all sorts. So people who've been along the journey have seen the progression and the change, but it goes from this idea that you do, a couple of times a year in the cockpit or wherever you book it, to going around Europe and you having to fund that, I guess, yourself, because it's grown from a small thing into a medium thing, but not yet big enough to be like funded by other people.
Precisely, yeah.
So there is that where you're acting, you're doing all your own stunts. And
literally, yeah, I know, right?
Yet you're having to book everything behind the scenes, deal with everybody, put the money out.
You have 14 jobs, give or take?
Yeah, exactly 14. You nailed it.
Man. Oh, great. Oh, fuck,
good instinct.
14 hats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah, no, you're completely right, because when you start something yourself, it inevitably is small to begin with, so the risks are small. A show or a project or a new mead, it might cost you a few £1,000, and if it goes completely wrong, you've lost a few £1,000, and you can make it back somehow. But when you're in the medium term, you still have to do it yourself, except now it's 100,000 quid. And if you lose it, you're never going to get that back, ever.
Yeah.
So, the gain is no higher. It's not like when you risk 100,000 quid, you come out with £1 million. You still come out like broken even, or like you made enough money to buy some tea for the coming days. But the risks are higher, but the rewards are no higher. But then eventually, I suppose the theory is you break through and then when it pays you back, it pays you back in dividends, and it's great and wonderful wherever that thing apparently lies. But thanks, man. Yeah, it started in the cockpit for 120 people after COVID, because that was all the people you were allowed to perform. And then yesterday, we went on sale with Live Nation, who's the biggest promoter on planet Earth, which I would never saw coming. I never, when I wanted to tell Viking mythology through my own, see what I did there, Viking mythology, Norse mythology, nice. Through the medium of pro wrestling, I did not ever think that would be taken on by the biggest promoter of live entertainment on Earth. And here we are. And whether that's a good thing, we'll find out. But, it's happening. We can say that much for sure.
Don't upset them. You can upset High Wycombe, York, musicals, but just do whatever you do not upset Live Nation.
Well,
I love how I love how you're like very believably Scandinavian in your ability to make something slightly pessimistic.
I think that's just British who've had to like figure out how to do something as well. Like just like any small business that grows.
Yeah,
I'm probably the same. All my friends say, why can't you just be happy? Why can't you look at what you've got and what you've done and just be happy? And I'm like, no. This could go wrong. That could go wrong.
No.
What about this other thing that maybe could happen and ruin everything I've ever done?
Yeah, it's in our DNA as I mean, I'm going to say British people. I'm not going to talk for the Scottish. They seem to be quite upbeat, but certainly as an Englishman, I am naturally a pessimist. I assume everything's terrible, and when it isn't, I'm sort of unpleasantly surprised. I'm like, oh god, it worked out. God. Ugh.
Oh no, the repercussions.
Yeah. But I think that it can come across as being pessimistic, but most people probably don't realize the amount of stuff.
Fair enough.
And plates that you're having to juggle at the same time. So it can look like you're being pessimistic about one thing, but I do it sometimes with shows. We'll do a trade show and I'll be like a little bit pessimistic if the sales aren't going as well. But that's because in my mind, I know how much I've had to pay for the stall, how much stock I've had to pay out for the wages. Like not everybody knows all that information. So it can look like maybe you're being a bit pessimistic, but really it's like, no, I see the whole picture and we need to do better.
Yeah.
so sell stuff.
There's also just being in English is generally like, we all know we need to do better as a race.
Just inherently.
In general, we've not been great. So we're not very good at being proud of ourselves because historically there's not an awful lot to be proud of. So
inherited guilt.
Yeah. And also, racially, a lot of us are largely Scandinavian anyway. Like a lot of our heritage comes from the Scandinavian countries that you mentioned about, they have a natural like ability to kind of deflect things. And, we may be English, but certainly 1,000 years ago, we weren't necessarily. The people that were coming over here and settling came from those countries. So, who knows whether it lives in the blood, but if it does,
might be.
We're all doomed.
All Anglo-Saxons were extremely positive and optimistic. Those Vikings came over with their pessimism.
That's what went wrong for them. They assumed when they got invaded, they're like, this will be fine. This will be fine. We're going to be...
It'll work out.
Yeah.
They're not going to come and
now it's us, so...
Whoops.
They're not going to come and take all our stuff and kill us all.
Yeah. And yet here we are. Welcome to an introduction to Norse mythology with Dr. Mathias Nordic. I hope no one was expecting to learn about Norse mythology. Should we try and do it? Should we try and do a quick introduction to Norse mythology between the three of us?
Oh, we could.
Oh shit! Oh no, I might get dragged then because here's the funny thing. Even though I am an archaeologist, like specializing within the Viking Age, not really that proficient in all things Norse mythology.
Well, as one of the world's leading...
You have just written a book on...
I have. Oh yeah, hang on. This is my Dr. Matthias Nordvig.
Oh my god. Spitting image.
I'm not going to try and impersonate him because I think that'd be insulting. And also, I couldn't do. He has such a lovely accent. So this is just, I've just put a hood up for anyone who's genuinely confused and thinks I've changed it. I forgot what I was talking about. Oh yeah, as one of the world's leading experts in Norse mythology, I can assure you, Mags, that your natural instincts will be correct. Because the Norse myths are grounded and earthy, and they represent what it means to be a human being. And therefore, as a human being, you are as qualified as anyone else to interpret them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, on behalf of Dr. Mathias Nordic, you are welcome.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mathias. Yeah, I appreciate it.
He would approve.
We could try and give our what we feel would be a good introduction.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone's still listening, Dan, they deserve to know.
Yeah, disclaimer, we will have Mathias on, who will clear up this whole mess and give us an actual introduction into Old Norse mythology.
When will Balder rise from the... I mean, we all know when Balder will rise from the dead. But when will Mathias come back?
I would say in the new year when we book this now. It will be...
So people have to wait like a month for this to be resolved.
With all this inaccurate information they're about to receive.
All right, we got a month, guys. Let's do it. Let's change the face of what people understand is Norse mythology.
Oh my God, what if we just Mathias comes on and he's like, okay, so we're just going to actually have to do like a play-by-play of the entire episode.
Yeah.
So at 53 minutes and 32 seconds, you said.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, go on, Dan.
I think, well, you know what I think would be fun is what do we think people need to know? Or maybe what is something that we know now that when we first started learning about Old Norse mythology.
The place called Hell isn't the hell that you're thinking of when you hear or read that term.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Where is it?
And where is it? Yeah.
Where the hell is it?
Hey!
Is it a hall in like Niflheim, or is it its own world? In which case, are there 10 worlds and not 9? And how many worlds were there before Hela got banished to be the ruler of the underworld? Was the underworld known by some other name at that point, or were there only 8 worlds and then the 9th one became Hell?
You know what I think also? Like, just from the impressions that I get from like sifting through all kinds of material from the Viking Age, I feel like many people at the time, if you started asking questions like that, they'd just be like, man, don't worry about it. Just listen to the stories. Like, why are you nitpicking? The point, that isn't the point though.
Yeah, I know, right?
You're worrying about the wrong thing.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I couldn't agree more, because that is definitely a lot of the feedback we get. It's like, this is a story.
Mm-hmm.
It has to make sense internally to itself, obviously. Otherwise, it's just a bad story. But like, you get wrong things.
I think I can guess that Mathias would say that there isn't a singular Old Norse mythology. That would be lesson 1.
Yeah, true.
That
absolutely
there isn't just a singular mythology. It doesn't exist. That based on region and time period, that is when you're going to get certain stories, which I would say is backed up by our last episode. If you want to hear from a legit scholar, I don't know if it's Doctor or Professor Gisli Sigurdsson. I don't want to get it wrong, so insert the correct.
Well, if you're a professor, you're inherently a doctor. Because you need to have a doctorate to become a professor.
Yeah. We'll just go with Doctor. Dr. Gisli Sigurdsson, who taught us about the Gaelic influence in Iceland. And obviously, a lot of these myths were written down in Iceland. So, again, that displays this idea that there isn't just a singular mythology.
How many are there?
Well,
put a number on it, Dan.
Infinite, I would guess.
2?
But Well, I mean 9, obviously.
Well,
Yeah,
All right, so
9 does seem to
Mag
be.
says 9. I say 2, and Dan says an infinite number.
Yeah, I would say
Right.
depending on where you are, who's telling the story,
Okay.
how good they are at remembering.
Yeah.
it.
Also, to add on to that, not only was there likely not one singular mythology, but the one that we keep referring to today, the one that we called the one, is cobbled together
Oh yeah.
based entirely on what happened to have been preserved on
Mm.
manuscripts that were, for some reason or another, preserved.
Right.
Mhm.
And in the process of preservation, potentially Christianized and put through a
Christianized
different
and
lens.
adapted.
I'm trying to think what Matthias would have said. Like, number 1, lots of versions. Number 2, the versions that we know have probably been somewhat, adapted
Yes.
from
Yeah.
what you might think of as the original.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that one thing that always stood out for me is that the Poetic Edda was written down after the Prose Edda. Now, that I think that is an interesting fact because everybody
Dan,
thinks of the Poetic Edda.
Why are you talking about the Poetic Edda when we're talking about the mythology? How is that relevant?
Just isn't it?
No, because the Poetic Edda is where we get the mythology, you dingus. I was trying to get you to...
She was doing what you did for me earlier.
Yes!
Yeah.
You up.
I was like, he can't possibly miss the
I got
cue.
to too.
Edit this out. Edit this
Because
out.
the Poetic and Prose Edda are where we get the mythology.
Oh.
Thank
So-
you,
No
Dan.
idea.
I've learned so much.
And so the Poetic Edda was written down after the Prose Edda, which a lot of people actually think it's the other way around.
But that's
Now-
not weird because it likely dates to before.
Exactly.
It's a big old mess, guys.
So the stories likely date to before because they've been analyzed by people smarter than us three here, and looking at the content.
Excuse me, I
they
don't want to
believe-
be dragged like this.
Well,
No, I'm
you're
kidding.
getting dragged.
I do.
They,
Okay, fine.
They're looking at the content. They believe that they are older, but it was actually written or compiled after the Prose Edda. Now,
Right.
I remember when I learned that blew my little mind.
Yeah.
Because I was like, no, it's got to be older. Definitely older. But
I remember learning that as a student, and my brain just kind of spazzed out for a second because I was like, "But what do you mean? Because they're older, but also younger. But how
Yeah.
can both things be true at once?"
Yeah. Oh, there's a tendency within this realm to just think that older means better as well, closer to the source, as if the source isn't just human beings telling stories, as if like the person who told it for the first time told it best.
Mm-hmm. And
or
also, no, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I have nothing else.
I was just going to say, but also we have this instinctual thing that in order for it to be the best or to be legit, the story has to be the same consistently.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, that's also perhaps maybe not the point. Maybe the point is also that they were organic things that changed
Definitely.
and evolved.
Yeah. It's like revisions of a script, you write one, you tell it a few times, and people are like, you really should change that bit. It's really not very good. And then you make it better. And over time, some people be like, look, this really jars now, like this is a little bit racist actually. And you go, oh shit. And then you change it and then you make it better. Not me personally, obviously. My scripts aren't racist. I'm saying, that's the kind of thing that people would say when they're trying to modernize old work, right? They're like, this Jeeves and Wooster, a little bit weird. You know what I read the other day? Dr. Dolittle. Terribly racist. I didn't know Dr. Dolittle was awful. So racist. There's an African prince who's literally dreaming of how he could be a white prince and how much better life would be, right? So if you were going to do a version of Dr. Dolittle, you'd be like, look, we should address some of these things, right? So the story, it's not that it makes it better, but it makes it more palatable. It makes it more enjoyable for people of the era that it pertains to. So they're fake stories anyway, right? So
Which actually also applies to the whole written down way after thing when it comes to the Eddas, because, and specifically the Poetic Edda, because not only were they written down in, and perhaps, influenced by the fact that there were Christian people now that were writing them down, but that doesn't mean that Christianity was necessarily like, oh my God, censor this, censor that, but more that exactly what you were saying, Ed, that it had to be adapted for a new audience because the people at that time wouldn't necessarily get it
right
in the same way.
Exactly.
They'd be like, okay, in order for people to be interested in this or for it to have any sort of inherent, like not necessarily value, but like to be accessible. Actually, accessible was the term I was looking for.
Yeah. And
How
it
do
has
we?
to be, right?
Yeah,
It has to be, because storytelling doesn't happen in isolation, or at least it shouldn't. You don't just sit on your own bed and tell yourself stories. When you tell a story, you're telling it to people, and their enjoyment and their interpretation, their response to the story is as important to that experience as the story itself. If you tell a story in such a ridiculous way that no one enjoys it, then you're terrible at your job, and why are you doing it? Whereas if the point of telling a story is to engage other people and entertain them and tell them something true and interesting about them and yourself, then you have to make sure that they relate to it. So if you're going to tell some ancient story that just annoys and offends and bores everybody, then you're not really doing the whole point of storytelling in the first place. So
exactly.
it's not that modernizing things is taking anything away from older stories. It's just making it accessible for the people who actually want to enjoy it. But nevertheless, Mags, people will always be like, well, changed it.
Sure.
Nothing should ever change. Everything should be always the same, and modern people shouldn't enjoy it.
Actually, I have a specific example in that case, because that got me thinking that recently, this is not going to seem relevant, but I promise you that it is. A couple of months ago, I randomly watched this new adaptation of a miniseries of The Count of Monte Cristo, which was like a combined British and French production with the Sam Claflin in the main role. And here's the thing. I had to read The Count of Monte Cristo when I was in high school. And I remember it vividly because I was a young teenager in the wildest of the Twilight craze. And the period where Count of Monte Cristo was on the curriculum was when I was in the middle of my Twilight obsession. And my mom literally had to confiscate New Moon so that I had to read Count of Monte Cristo. She was like, you're not getting this book back until you finish Count of Monte Cristo. And I remember being like, fuck. So I remember reading Count of Monte Cristo like out of spite, vividly. And then I saw this new adaptation, and I haven't reread the Count of Monte Cristo since, but I remember begrudgingly liking it. I was like, oh shit, this was a good book, actually. Damn it. And then I watched this adaptation, and I was just struck by how familiar it felt, even though I hadn't read the book in like a decade and a half. I was just like, oh my God, wow, it feels familiar. I started to remember things, and I finished the whole thing. And I was like, this was such a good adaptation. Holy crap, this was good. Right. And then I got curious, like, okay, but what things did they change? Because nothing really stood out to me, but I was like, I can't remember this, or like, oh, was that how it ended? And they have made significant changes, but nothing that affects the overall theme or point of the story. But like you said, there are, racial things that were different in the 1880s than they are today. So there's a significant change to a certain character, which gave her agency instead of just making her a prop like she is in the book. Stuff like that. But it did what it was supposed to do, because even though it made significant changes, the point of the story came across. Yeah,
and as a result, you loved it.
Exactly.
Because it was the whole point of telling a story of any kind is to tell it to people and for them to enjoy it or learn something from it. So
exactly.
That's a great example. I never thought the Count of Monte Cristo would have so much to do with ancient Norse mythology, but look,
it's you never know.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
I also like to.
You do know. And what you should know is that things can't just stay the same all the time, especially when they're pretend things anyway. But we're not dealing with like the fundamentals of existence here. We're talking about stories, and they should.
But doesn't it kind of get to the fundamentals of existence though? Because maybe the fact that people get upset about stuff is that stuff like that when it's changed, is that it reminds us that everything inherently and by default is always moving. Things are always changing. We can't do squat to change that, and that freaks a lot of people out.
Yeah, it does.
And I don't think everybody has time to think that deeply.
Oh, true.
Either. I think it's tough because we bash people, or I bash people on here a lot about, everything being surface level and only thinking about, what it says in the poetic edda or the prose edda, and that's thinking that that's the absolute and that they're multiple versions depending on what time period. We're
Mm.
talking about a period of 300 years in history. That's like us back to the 1700s. Like that's a long period of time to be like, oh, well, they
I'd
thought
say that a fair amount has changed since
Yeah.
the 1700s. I don't know.
Yeah.
and obviously it's got quicker, but to think
Sure.
that nothing has changed in that time would be ridiculous.
But
But
also,
also, I think that people they want to read something and then get about their life and just go, okay, this is what they believed. It's just when people maybe then really dig in and are like, no, I know for a fact because I read this one book. That becomes frustrating. But other than that, I can and do understand that like people just got to do their own shit. They've got kids, they've got to go to work, they've got family, they've got all this stuff. So they just read a book or listen to one episode of the podcast maybe, and they base it on that.
Dr. Mathias Nordic.
Yeah,
Not getting it.
to answer all the questions.
Yeah, no, I think so, and I think it's weirdly representative of the time that we live in. I guess like people have been raised with the internet, right? Where all of us were raised with the idea that you make comments on the internet and other people tell you you're wrong, and then you have to defend yourself and say you're right. And so we were all raised in this weird like online fight club where all of us had to defend everything we said all the time and be right or wrong, which is fucking insane. So now people just sort of assume as an artist or as a storyteller that you're trying to be correct. So they're like, well, that's not right. What you said isn't right. And on the assumption that I'm trying to be right. I'm not trying to be right. I'm trying to be entertaining or engaging or teach people something or give them a lovely experience, especially in this particular subject matter in which there is no way of being right. There was some stories millions of years ago that have changed over time, and now I'm telling those same stories in a different way. I'm not trying to be right, and the idea that I could fail in that effort to be correct, but yet because we're also primed to constantly look for like who is right and who is wrong, and how can you back this stuff up? It's like everyone is just like ready to fight about stuff that just doesn't matter anymore. But that's how we've all been raised. Is in the comments of YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm. Without getting too deep into just the internet and AI.
Oh no! What comment sections have you been perusing?
No. I haven't been in any. I've been a good boy. I've not been in any.
Very proud of you, Dan. That was very condescending, but I am genuinely very proud of you.
It's the three of us are of an age where we kind of transcend this completely. We probably can pretty much remember the internet as we know it today, starting from dial-up internet to what we've got now, and things like MSN Messenger, the early introduction of the introduction of Facebook and the cesspit that are like Facebook groups now, where people just argue. Well, not just Facebook groups, all of the internet, where people just argue over everything. And now we're getting into an era of AI where there's tons of AI information out there that's fake, and videos you don't know what are real. So we've seen it all, and it's really fascinating to see kind of where things are, because there is a lot of pushback against AI, I think, at the minute with videos. Whenever I see a post that's AI, if you look in the comments, it's all just like, oh, another AI bullshit. Everyone's sick of this AI shit. But when it comes to information, it's still really doing its thing. It's still giving those little AI summaries. You're still getting.
You can't get away. Right?
It's still offering you to write things for you. It still wants, and it muddies the water so much because people will just put in a topic and then they'll get a little thing at the top that summarizes the entire internet for them. And then they'll just tell somebody else that.
And it is frequently wrong.
Always, constantly wrong. And
to your point, Ed, with the whole like either right or wrong, it is frequently not consistently accurate. So it gives you a false impression of what a right is.
Yeah. But it also does it with this insane level of confidence.
Well, that's
It just
yeah.
declares it, and you're like, well, that's wrong. And he goes, yeah, it is.
But if you took, let's say you applied that to, Old Norse mythology, if you put in a question in there as like, I don't know, anything like, who kills Balder or how does Balder die? It will give you an answer that seems like it's an absolute.
Yeah.
And then if you're just quickly Googling that, then that gets then passed on to other people and it just becomes this.
Yeah.
And that's more and more and more. Whereas before, maybe you had to kind of read a little deeper into it.
But that's how modern people communicate, right? A lot of the time when you listen to them talk, they're just regurgitating the first opening paragraph of Wikipedia of whatever the subject is. A subject comes up in conversation, and if you've read a couple of Wikipedia articles about it, you know exactly what's going to come out of the mouth of everyone around the table. It'll be those first paragraphs. I heard blah, 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 blah. Oh, no, that's a common misconception, blah, 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 blah. And you know already what they're going to say because that's how modern humans seem to talk. Because there's this odd idea that we all have to know everything all the time and that not knowing something isn't acceptable. So instead, everyone will just give you a Google summary of in their own words. Which is mad because, I don't know, man, where I come from, if someone asks me, I just say, I don't know. I have no idea. And I'm happy like that. But that doesn't seem acceptable anymore. Now you have to have an opinion, and that opinion can be challenged. It can be right or wrong. And just saying, I've never heard of this, so of course I don't know. But imagine an AI wrote a version of Norse mythology, right?
Oh, geez.
And imagine, it was better. It was brilliant. It was full of all this stuff we'd never thought about, and it looked at every of Dan's infinite number and Mags's 9 number of Norse mythologies. It read all of them. It read both of mine, and it took them all in, and it created the most beautiful version of the Norse myths that you'd ever written. Would you give a fuck? Because a computer made it. And the whole reason that the stories are interesting and exciting and emotional is because they're from the minds of human beings expressing themselves. And it doesn't matter if a computer can make a better one or a faster one or one that it takes in all the different information and is correct because it was made by a computer. And the whole point of the myths is that they tell me something about being a human being. And that's something a computer can never do. It doesn't feel anything, and it can't tell me how to feel either, right?
That's the interesting thing, though, because I heard this really interesting podcast. I think it was an interview Hank Green did with someone who has studied AI.
Right.
Where the question was essentially but what would you tell people that are kind of feel really defeated, kind of that we're just being overwhelmed by this tsunami of the AI kind of development. And this guy said, well, here's the thing. AI inherently, where it's at now at least, can't create anything new. It can create things that might seem fresh to you because you don't have experience with it, but it is taught based on stuff that already exists.
Mm.
So in effect, it can create something that seems new, but any ideas or developing new thoughts, new points won't be in its purview, at least so far, because it is taught based on stuff. It doesn't think the way we do.
Yeah.
So we still have the capacity to make stuff up.
Yeah, that's it, right?
And AI makes stuff up all the time. That's not what I'm saying, but invent actual concepts.
Yeah. And also, even when it can make stuff up, what's it making it up based on? Based on its life experience? Based on the things it has felt throughout its existence?
I kind of feel bad for AI, actually.
I don't think... I think AI is a bit of a misnomer. I don't think it's actually AI. It's just really powerful programs that can scan tons of information and then kind of sort it out and deduce it into the best answer.
I actually looked that up too.
I don't think it's actual intelligence. I think it's just that's a good marketing tool for it. And
that's it, though. Someone actually did write a book on that and trace the origin of it. And the reason why suddenly there was AI all over the place was because the term artificial intelligence became sexy for venture capitalists to invest in. And that's why we stopped talking about algorithms and computer power and we started talking about artificial intelligence. It was literally, I'm sorry to be the special snowflake again, but it was literally capitalism.
Because for me, AI would be something that is free thinking. It would be
The Matrix. It would be
iRobot.
It would be
a human mind that can create things, that can make decisions. It's not just sorting through. It's all
an actual
past
conscience.
answers.
Yeah,
it's independent.
Right? Because so Matthias has released a book, an introduction to Norse mythology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you buy that book or read that book instead of just Googling and asking like Google AI, what is Norse? Give me an intro to Norse mythology. And the reason is because Matthias is a human being who hasn't just learned all about Norse mythology, but he's interpreted it as a human being and can tell you as a fellow human being what you might enjoy or get out of it. Whereas AI, as much as it might have read 1,000 things more than Matthias because it's a computer, it hasn't got the first fucking idea what any of that might mean to you as a person. It can just guess. It can just guess and tell you like, well, this is what's commonly thought, right? So the differentiating factor is always with a human being that we share that in common. And that's why like what I do is an introduction to Norse mythology as well. But people don't get up and cheer at the end of our show because they're very happy that we gave an accurate description of Norse myths. They get up and cheer because they've seen 12 human beings go fucking balls to the wall for an hour and a half or 2 hours or however the hell long it is. And they enjoy our version of our story that we tell because we're human beings all mixed up together in a big mass of human beings that goes back billions of years. And here we are. And this is an interpretation of a story. Whereas if you just typed into fucking Google, tell me an intro to Norse myths told through wrestling, and it showed you a stupid video that it had put together for you, what is that telling you? Except that it doesn't understand a thing about what it means to actually exist.
It's entertaining, and that's what people need to remember, is that these myths and stories would have been told to entertain, and that's the be all. And I know that's what that's what they're there for. And I a little comparison came to mind, I guess, of, have you ever seen people who do hyper realistic drawings?
Oh, I love it.
So I saw somebody doing a pet one the other day, and she was using a photo of a dog and then redrawing that photo hyper realistic, and it's like, this is incredible. Now if I just wanted a picture of the dog, I could just have the photo. It looks exactly like the drawing, but the drawing is the one that captures you and people will pay hundreds of pounds for, even though the actual aim is to make it look exactly like the photos. If they're the best in the world at it, they're going to make it look indistinguishable from a photo.
Yeah.
But yet it's that human skill and the fact that it's not quite a photo is what is so endearing about it. And that's what makes it worth the money and what makes us all kind of
good comparison.
Jesus Christ, I like that. That's good.
It's the difference between buying an original painting and buying a print, right?
Yeah.
They look the same. You can't really
when it's on your
tell,
wall, you can't tell.
Right? I'm sure you can tell, but to extents and purposes, they look the same. The difference is, one is the actual paint that was put there by an actual person.
I've seen Mr. Bean.
That timeline is exciting.
I've seen Mr. Bean, and he got away with Whistler's mother.
Oh,
they couldn't tell that Whistler's mother was not the real thing.
I forgot that. Is that like an extended edition or like a film? It can't be.
No, it's the first movie where he goes to America to the art gallery.
I want to take a note right now to watch that, because that was brilliant.
Awesome. It is brilliant. It is great.
Yeah, but that's it, right? Like, Rowan Atkinson is a legend because he doesn't seem to buy into any of this stuff. We talked earlier, before the episode even started, about what it means to sell out and what it means to actually be authentic in a world that really doesn't reward you for it. And I think Rowan Atkinson, I'm probably going to be corrected by someone at any moment. He seems like one of those people that did his art authentically and then backed off and only seems to do it when it works for him.
Good for him.
When you want to, yeah. But to throw it back to your show and, Old Norse Mythology, I would love to think that when these stories were performed, let's say in a long hall or around a fire, that they would be acted out a little more than just. So obviously we know there were storytellers. There was somebody who would stand there and recite the story. That's the idea, that they would, give this poem and bring it to life through words. But why couldn't there have been also a group who then acted this out and performed it, even if it's just 2 or 3 people, just performed the motions and what's going on? It seems a natural progression to have that.
Dude, theatre is at least 2,000 years old, if not much older, right? The idea, which is exactly what you described, which is a group of people who come out and perform the story instead of just making you sit and listen to one person tell it to you. So I think the answer has to be they did. You don't need evidence for it. Just look at humans. Just look what they do. Leave them alone and look what they do. They tell stories and they jump around and they go like, actually, I'll be Thor, and you be Loki, and then pretend you slept with my wife. Way! And then, it's fun. Right? It's more exciting than having someone be like, and then Thor said to Loki, you slept with my wife. And he shook his fists and the world shook with the anger. You're like, yeah, great. Okay, bring Thor out. Bring him out and let him fight Loki, and then we'll all get off our drinking benches.
And they both have their own place as well. Because I guess if it's at the end of the night or it's in maybe a close setting, that storyteller narrative is quite nice.
It's lovely.
But if the kings come to town and you need to do something bigger than the norm, then you maybe want to put on a production and you
Mythos Ragnarok.
Bring out the big guns.
Yeah, man, for sure. I mean, I got into this because I was a storyteller, right? That's what I like doing. I had no money or nothing else, but I had me, and so I could get up and tell stories on my own, and that's what I've always done. And then as time went on, I realized I was as good at telling stories physically as verbally. So I got into telling stories that included some physicality, and that morphed into, halfway through me telling a story, someone would attack me, and I'd have to fight my way out, and that morphed into a couple of people attack me, and then it evolved into teams, and then it evolved into a whole crew of people. And at one point, inevitably, we were like, wait a minute, there's enough of us now that I don't have to tell a story and have random fight scenes. Each one of us can be a character in the story, and we can act it out. It's just, if I did that, an actual idiot in this day and age, imagine what like the skalds and the actors and the poets of bygone eras managed to do, because it certainly wouldn't have just been like stand around and pluck a lyre every now and then. So,
and also because that's we also have like the Viking Age is so close in time, relatively speaking, to kind of the medieval court that we've heard about and seen, in all sorts of movies and stories and blah. But it was probably very different. So it was probably structured, but not in the same way. But then piggybacking off of that to kind of back up your point, Ed, is, last episode, Dan, when we spoke to Gisli and we spoke about how everything around you can be a keeper of memory. So, for example, how he talked about the way that the mythology could be connected to the skyscape, meaning that perhaps Yggdrasil, the tree of life, was actually the Milky Way, because it can look like branching. So, and from archaeological evidence, from all this evidence, we know for a fact, despite maybe not knowing exactly what they're referring to, Viking Age culture, which changed dramatically during these 300 years, was an incredibly self-referential culture. They referenced everything all the time. So why wouldn't they physically reenact, do stuff? We know through burials that they had these massive, not necessarily just processions, but like almost like productions, like your show, Ed, that they would just put on stuff. Like it would be a hoopla that almost seems gauche to us.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Yeah.
But like they reference everything all the time. And maybe we don't know exactly what they're referencing, but it's so overt that as soon as you get into looking at stuff, it's like, this is pointing to something.
Yeah.
I can't really tell what it's pointing to, but it's obviously like, if you know type of culture. It's almost like our internet culture, where it's a lot more fragmented today. But I feel like, especially like those of us who grew up on the early internet, we have certain terms of phrases and stuff that we can say, like people will just know.
Yeah, but also, Mags, you're right, because again, if you leave human beings alone and just watch what they do, that's what we do. We come up with weird stories, not just for the sake of it, because it explains what the hell is going on. And so if that's the extent to which you can explain what's going on, that's what you'll do. And it doesn't then, you don't then have to like crowbar in like, aha, they actually knew about atoms because they said in this story that there were tiny men running around in the trees. It doesn't have to be accurate. It doesn't have to be true. The point is, whatever your best understanding of what it means to be a human being is at that time, it will come out in your storytelling and in your performances and in the way that you interact with each other. So yeah, it's that's my introduction to Old Norse mythology, is to say that it was a way, I think, a way of not, when people say it was a way of explaining the world around you, it doesn't just mean scientifically, it means emotionally. It means like we all get spat out into this godforsaken world, and we're like, well, none of us know what we're doing here, and then you can rally around one another, create those stories and genealogies for yourself to explain where you came from and why, and then you tell it to one another because it's fun. And it makes the small window of time between birth and death like marginally more tolerable, and really,
because we're cursed with such an obnoxious self-awareness.
Yeah, right.
But on that point, I think that we're gifted with a lot of free time in the modern age. We're well,
no, I
not
know.
me.
You have not.
We're not, but also we're free to kind of do these things. We don't have to worry about where food's coming from. We can figure it out. There are places we can get it. Whereas, back 1,000 years ago, did people care so much about how the world came into existence when you really had to figure out how you were going to feed yourself and your family, and you had to work the fields, and there's all this other manual stuff going on? Did it really matter?
But here's the thing, Dan. I think we have been privileged enough to lead such, excuse the pun here, blessed lives where there are certain things that we don't have to worry about to the same extent. But I think you underestimate how captivated you can be with your own existence and the world around you, despite have to really go day by day. Because multiple things can exist at once. I think regardless of how little your maybe primary needs are met, you will still want stories, because that's also a term of like way of sustenance. You will still wonder why lightning happens.
I don't mean stories as in like you wouldn't want the entertainment of stories, but it's just this idea of such deep critical thinking all the time about how all these little things happened.
But
I don't think the average person would.
But I don't think it's. I don't think it's deeply critical. I think it's just a way of interacting with the world around you, because I think all of those things that we kind of blanket label as stories made up to explain the world around you. We think of that as like, oh, so that they would have answers for everything. I think it's just also to do with like you exist in the world and stuff happens in the world and you don't know really why. And so regardless of what the actual scientific explanation of it would be, you still have to deal with the fact that it's happening, like weather, like thunder, like seasons, depending on where you are. And to a certain extent, I would say that those types of changes or occurrences in the world around you would be more intimately felt probably back then, because we can kind of hibernate and hide if we want to. We have artificial lighting and we have vehicles to get us from place to place insanely quickly. Like we don't have to, we're still, not subjugated, but we still have to deal with the world around us. Like we can't control everything. but we're not necessarily as exposed. And I'm speaking here from, us living in Northern Europe, being extremely privileged. We don't have to deal with stuff like that to the same extent, I would say. It's bothersome more than...
I actually, Mags.
Oh, go ahead, please.
I think it's the opposite of what Dan said.
Ooh.
I agree with you. I think, weirdly, when life is harder and you have more immediate concerns and threats to your survival, the importance of having something to cling on to and an understanding of why you're even bothering actually becomes even more important. And you're right, it's not the minutiae of necessarily like, why is there lightning, or what did Loki do or say at this point in time? Like you say, that's, who cares? But a generalized understanding of for example, the concept of vengeance, or the idea that your actions might be being watched by greater powers than you, and they will fucking strike you down if you don't like accommodate their value system, for example. Like the mere concept that the gods walk amongst us, or they might visit you during the day. So if a stranger turns up, it might be Odin. So don't just stab him, because that's not great. I know that you might be dealing with, immediate concerns to your survival, but in terms of like why you even bother to survive, I feel like in that situation, the strength and the value of the mythology and of the explanatory value of them is even higher, because you actually need it. I don't fucking need to know anything right now, because if I don't know or do anything, everything is fine, because I can click this button and Tesco will deliver all the things. And then I can click this button and the thing will play the entertainment. I can sit there and vegetate and die for 100 years. Whereas back then, you had to get up and do stuff. And I really think that understanding why and how to do that was probably even more important then than now.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think the whole concept of whether or not it is factually correct is also a bit like missing the plot a little bit, because I don't know whether or not it was about whether they would have the same thought system in place, because it's not about whether or not this is actually the case. I think this is why there's such an interesting thing about like the Vikings, as far as we know, were never like, they didn't have like a missionary aspect. And I'm not dragging on any specific religions here, but I'm just talking about the way that they interacted with the world. Didn't seem like they had a big issue with other people practicing different ways of life, other than as long as they could come pillage. But like, it was just about interacting with the world, I think, and having some sort of like, oh yeah, that's why that happens.
Would there even be like a fact, an opinion, and an opinion? Would that even concept even exist?
Yeah.
It's just, I think that it just would be like, you're just wherever you. Again, we live in a globalized society where we know what the people not only 50 miles east think, but also 5,000 miles east. I don't know how big. How is 5,000 miles too big for the world?
No.
2,000.
It is very small.
I don't.
You're being very conservative. The world is very big.
I was like, I don't know. Okay, 5,000 miles east thing. So we know that. Whereas, unless you traveled on your horse for a few days or weeks, then you wouldn't know necessarily what the next village thought.
No.
So you have that. Yeah, and you wouldn't care. This is your existence, and the world's a lot smaller. So whatever you're told as you're growing up, that the lightning does that because of this, or it rains because of that, or these grow because that's just what you're taught and everybody's taught, and it probably just is. There isn't maybe. It's not myth, it's just fact. That's just the matter of life.
We all grew up in the shadow of the scientific method, that had to, at some point, people came up with that. People came up with the idea that you come up with an idea, you test it, you gather evidence, and that supports your hypothesis. They had to come up with that because that wasn't how everyone did stuff. So it wasn't like 2,000 years ago, people were just naturally like we are now, pseudoscientists. Like everyone you meet now will tell you what the science says, and they've never done any fucking science in their life. They just, the science says this, because they think that Googling something and reading like the abstract of a paper about it is doing science. I don't know. But
you trust that somebody else has done
exactly,
the science.
Right? A lot of what, if not everything we think about the world is based on research, actual research somebody else did that we not even didn't do, but couldn't even read. If we tried to read it, we wouldn't understand what it's on about. Like the equations upon which like GPS is based that we all live off, we wouldn't know. But you'll happily tell someone that it exists. You'll happily spout off about the shape of the world or the way the planets work. Everyone will like have a go at a flat earther without being able to prove why the earth is round themselves. Like people, we live in a world in which we're so used to science being like law that we kind of weirdly look back in time and imagine that people then were looking for explanations and gathering evidence about the world around them because that's what we do. But I don't think there's a reason to think that at all. If anything, I think we've become like corrupted by it.
I think that's such a great point, Ed, because it's all about like what is our entry point into even trying to understand all of this. And I think we do approach all of this with all of these inherent biases. And I'm not talking about biases as something that's negative, but just stuff that will color our perception of the past without us even realizing it.
Right.
I think you can apply that to scholarship a little bit in that Old Norse mythology, you trust that Mathias knows what he's talking about. And you trust that what he's read, that those people have done their research properly. And, Mathias will have done his due diligence and will have pulled from, the correct sources. But as we've learned on this podcast so many times, a lot of this stuff comes from maybe more nefarious regions or times in history, or just even the Victorian era where it wasn't that, they didn't care about it being that accurate, or it was the best they could do at the time. So everything is based on somebody else's.
Not even Victorian eras, you don't have to go further back than 80s and 90s. We're just the way that we perceive the world today is totally different.
Yeah, and we're trusting that scholarship, and then people are reading books and going, and then telling everybody this is the Norse mythology. This is what the Vikings did, and it'd be interesting to see in 100 years what people then look back at Mathias and like, he really tried. He did try his best with the knowledge he had at the time, but it's all wrong.
I don't even think they'd say it's wrong. I just think they'd say that, well, he did make some good points. However, being inherently a product of his time, he hasn't considered these aspects.
Exactly.
Or same with my research, being like, oh yeah, cool, you tried to argue all these points, but in 50 years, I'm sure they'll be like, but why didn't you consider this? And I'll be like, oh, that's a good point, actually. I wasn't really.
Yeah, but at least there's a foundation of fact in what you do. Like if you could find an item and be like, yes, this was used for eating gruel. And actually it wasn't at all. It was used for sticking into a tree so that you could climb up it or something. So you can actually be wrong in your field. Whereas when you're talking about stories, as long as you're not declaring what other people thought, you can reinterpret and reinterpret those stories as much as you like. I don't know. It feels like you keep saying, Mags, people miss the point of what these things are there to do in the first place. It's called mythology, right? It should be, the clue should be in the title. It's
but there are some people who get really mad when you say the word mythology as well.
But we've touched on this before, but I think it's also there is an unfortunate thing in that, religion is used as a blanket term, and religion and mythology, mythology is also used as a blanket term. And then sometimes the two are convoluted, meaning that you think that one is the other, and that within either branch that they refer to exactly the same thing regardless of where you are in the world or what culture you're talking about. But mythology is not the same thing for everything we call mythology. Same for religion. And mythology doesn't automatically equate a religion such as we think that it might do. I felt like I got lost in the sauce of my own argument there a little bit. But
I think I and all listeners followed you.
Okay, great, good.
Well,
I was thinking furiously as I was talking, so I was like, wait, hang on.
This is my whole life, man, for sure. No, you're right, because, I think you're right.
Oh, thank you.
In that, I don't know, it's a big old question, right? But I guess to an extent, all religions are an interpretation of a story on a spiritual level, because a religion doesn't come out of nowhere necessarily. So you have experiences that could be written down or could just be your day-to-day life, and you interpret them on a spiritual level, and other people don't. And that would be why one person can be religious about something and some person can enjoy the mythology of something, and it doesn't seem like that's contentious until someone says that I don't think that these things literally exist. And that's fine, because some of us think things exist based on things that are written down, and some of us don't. I guess all of us think things exist based on things that are written down. Otherwise, it'd be very difficult to have any conversations. But I don't think that what you said is... Dan, you went for a pee at the wrong moment, man. Max came up with some hardcore shit about she started dissing religion.
Well, I will say that I just think that, conflating a mythology for a religion is, again, missing the plot a little bit. And the sad fact is that when I say missing the plot, I can't give answers to what the original plot might have been. But it's more of like, what are the ramifications of not having a point of view that would be reflective of the time, in the sense that, like, if you think that a mythology is inherently a religion, then that affects how you understand the entire culture.
Yes, I agree. Personally.
And that's probably where the missing the plot thing can come into play. With Norse mythology specifically, because it doesn't necessarily have to equate to things that people actually did or...
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because presumably a religion implies a behavior, right? If your religion doesn't necessitate? If your religion doesn't necessitate? Thank you. If your now I can't say religion. If your religion doesn't necessitate action, then like it's a shit religion, presumably. Whereas you can happily enjoy and believe, like get caught up in a mythology without thinking you then have to do or believe anything. So they're clearly like different things, right? And so if you interpret a culture's mythology as its prevailing religion, then you might get a bizarre idea of how those people lived, thinking that Odin genuinely was a god looking down on them and might strike them down at any minute in a battle, compared to people who just are aware of this as a story and a reason for going about their lives. But I mean, I am too ignorant to possibly say to what extent the mythology related to the religions of the time. But I expect Dan knows more about it because he's done many podcasts with people who've written books about this.
Assuming I remember.
I don't think
we've ever covered like mythology versus religion, which I think would be fascinating.
I think we've skirted. We've
probably not done it specifically. Like
we've done drive-bys,
and I think that would be really interesting because, again, I can't bash anyone because I thought the same when I first started doing this. I read some articles and some, not even articles, some blogs on the internet that said, this means this is, and I was like, yeah, because I just assumed that those were right, that I'd looked on this website and it said that Loki did this and Balder, was hit with a arrow of mistletoe, and you, without going any deeper, you just assume that is the truth. Why would I think any different? It's written down. You would just think that's kind of...
because you're interpreting it as a modern human who is used to reading a book and then someone telling you what the book says and you can say yes or no, which is not how it was, right?
So you would just assume that there are absolutes. So I think then people think that, that's what the Vikings believed. Was they had this all kind of singular religion, and then you go deeper, and
but that's an interesting thing
isn't.
too, though, because like belief can be religious, but you can believe something without it being a religion.
Mm-hmm.
You can have stories about the world without that being by default part of a religion, and I think that's where we get tripped up.
You can also have stories about gods, though, right, Mags? You can have stories about gods and the creation of the universe, and that still isn't a religion.
No, exactly. And that was
and not be
yes. And that's exactly what I was getting at, because I think that like no, but like that was like the point that I was trying to get to when I was like stumbling through the earlier thing while Dan was peeing. So like, thank you for.
Like I tried to sulk off silently and quietly, and you just
you wrote, "I've got to pee" in the message.
Yeah, but the people listening can't see that.
Well, they can now.
Well, listeners of the podcast know that you have a famously,
small bladder. Yes.
Yeah. Didn't want to be the one to say it, but
Mags nearly got to her point. Go.
But my what I was trying to get at was that thank you for kind of putting it so clearly, Ed, because I think that's what I was trying to get to, was that you can have stories about gods, you can have stories about how the world works. That doesn't necessitate a religion.
Yes.
Because I also think that we live in a world where from before we're almost conscious, even the word religion is part of everything around us, regardless of what you believe or don't believe personally. Because we live in this period where not only are there so many different ones, but you can also choose to not subscribe to any of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we kind of have this impression that there must have been the same sort of, not necessarily, I think that if you dive into history a little bit, you'll see that, atheism or agnosticism, as we kind of understand it today, is a relatively new concept, seemingly, at least at like on a large scale. But that we have this, I'm generalizing a lot here, but we have this kind of notion that there must have been religions all the time. And I think that's where we get tripped up in like, what's a mythology and what's a religion? Mm-hmm. Because then mythology doesn't necessarily exist anymore, but then that must have kind of been evidence of their religious practices. But then what do we mean when we use the word religion?
Yeah.
I remember when the first time we had Simon Nygaard on, and one of the things he said was like, well, we use the word belief a lot. We believe in this. And say, well, that's not necessarily how they thought. It just was.
Exactly.
It wasn't that they believed that I can't think of an example off the top of my head. The tree did that because of whatever. It's like it just did. Like these things happened because that was just how it was. There wasn't I believe in this. It was just that's just life. That's the same way that the sun rises for us today, and the birds chirp, and the seasons change. That these bits that we call mythology and seem a little bit surreal to us, it just was. It wasn't a belief system. It wasn't necessarily a religion.
Yeah, it would be
because it was just life. It was just is.
Yeah, it's a strange concept of what a belief means. Like, I'm sitting down at the moment, and when I sat down, I firmly believed there was a chair beneath me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have sat down, because I would have thought I was going to fall down. So I believed there was a chair there, obviously, and my belief turned out to be true because there was a chair there, and I sat down, right? But there was nothing religious about it, and there was nothing that explained something about my mythology at the time of the 21st century. So you can obviously have like jillions of beliefs that have nothing to do with your mythology, right? But in the future, when it turns out there is no such thing as a chair, and like fundamentally speaking, the majority of the chair is actually empty space where the particles aren't. And so part of my mythology was that I believed in the identity of a chair and sat down, and therefore I must have been like some kind of chair religious person, is a nonsense, right? So there's clearly ways in which like beliefs work on a daily level that doesn't entail religion or mythology. And then there are clearly mythological beliefs that are pertain to a greater understanding of what it means to be a human being in the situation. And then there are religious ones that pertain to the fact that there may or may not be a God, and that therefore you should or shouldn't act in certain ways because of, I don't know, divine vengeance or something, right? So you don't need, depending on where your culture is, you have mythologies to explain things that a non-existent science can't, and then you have other beliefs that don't. No, I thought I was going somewhere, but I wasn't.
No, but you were.
And then I stopped.
But I felt like you kind of got there.
I was building to something, and then I was like, "Oh, I probably got there already," but I didn't.
You got there.
Orator, I failed. I was like, "Oh
you
shit!"
Got there.
I should have made a point there.
You got there. You went past a little bit,
as per usual.
Came back.
Dan, as per usual.
All right, let's wrap this up, and we will let people ask you some questions if they so please. Ed, we'll do maybe like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes more, and then we'll let you get on with your evening.
Okay.
Thank you to everybody who's listened to today's show. Obviously, it changed on the fly. Matthias,
we believed it would be one thing, and then it turned into something else organically.
Yeah. And yet it doesn't form part of our mythology or our religion. I mean, obviously these two do regale me as some kind of a deity. That's clear, because in their time of need, they called and I answered their prayers. Not well, to be fair, but here I am anyway.
Hey,
like a terrible god.
Excuse me, Ed. You can't be the one to determine whether or not you answered it well or not, because
that's true.
You weren't the audience, so sorry.
What's interesting though about this is that within the what we were just speaking about is my job, right? My actual job is to get up in front of people and embody Loki, the god, and tell stories. And there are people in that audience who believe in the mythology and the religion of what I'm doing. And I'm very fortunate that the majority of them seem to come up afterwards and say they really enjoyed the interpretation of it. But it's super fucking weird, right? To think that there are people there who believe in these gods as actual entities and then watch me pretend to be them. And that, like, it's an odd dynamic. So it's something that I have a real personal connection to, because when you go up there and you do the thing, there's a lot of pressure on you to be entertaining or to be accurate or whatever. But the main thing is to try and do justice to the fact that people believe in these gods, because that represents their own experiences as a human being. And that when you go up there and you represent those gods, you really are trying to give life to something that they believe actually exists in some way, shape, or form. That's crazy.
Wow, I haven't really considered that.
Yeah.
But that's of course. Jeez.
Yeah, they're like, yo, what's up?
Loki's.
Loki is a particularly difficult one to try and perform, but the main one was to get Loki and Freya. We get a lot of people who believe in, to whatever extent, religiously or mythologically, in these gods, and we go up there and pretend to be them.
Wait, what? You don't actually become Loki?
I mean,
is that what you're telling me?
I do, because I'm a professional.
Yeah.
Don't you just become a vessel for the entity?
He's just a vessel.
I'm just channeling. Loki. But yeah, it's a weirdly it's a huge honor, but it's also a huge pressure, and that's interesting, right? That there's a religious connotation to what we do. So anyway, sorry, I've just started rambling. I just thought it was interesting.
No, it is.
That is interesting.
It is, and we will talk a little bit more about that in the little Q&A.
Poor Dan, desperately trying to finish the episode.
No, I don't want to keep Ed too long, but like I was saying, Matthias will be on, and we will discuss his new book. Unfortunately, Powers B.
We will be discussing his new book, unfortunately.
You can get 20% off of Matthias'
I saw
book
that
right now.
Yes.
If you buy it right now, you can get 20% off.
Maybe it was Thor who knocked out the power in Boulder so we could have Ed on his own today. Who knows what happened? But Ed, thank you so much as always. It's always saying always a lot. It is it's a fun time to have you here. It tends to be chaotic, but also very deep thought out. I think we always tend to, because it feels chaotic, but we always tend to travel down some deep thinking paths, which
there.
enjoy.
Yeah, man. Like I'm channeling Loki, etc. No, it certainly isn't thought out, right? But it's natural, and I love our conversations, obviously. And I'm very appreciative to be here, and I love that people want to listen to us chat. So yeah,
and
I love Here We.
Yeah,
it's also crazy to me that my general way of being is considered by you to be chaos, but fine. To me, this was just a normal.
I mean, I feel like we have to take some responsibility in that also, so I can't put it all on you. But if you haven't bought a Christmas present for your loved one yet, do go and pick up tickets to the Mythos Ragnarok show. You can still get them, no delivery time. You'll be able to put the tickets in a little card, give them to your loved one, and they will thoroughly enjoy it. And you don't have to be a fan of wrestling. That is a vehicle in which I would guess the fight scenes are played out, and they are very much entertaining, but there is a deeper meaning to this. There's the theater there, there's storytelling. It is a fantastic show. Ed's put everything into this, so do go and pick up some tickets, do go and see it. And if it's in and around Yorkshire, I may be there as well. You may see.
Where can people find the tickets, Ed?
TV?
My God, good question.
That's a question.
Just go to mythosragnarok.com. It's super easy. And the tickets are there. They're all around England. There are no venues in Scotland or Wales we're interested. So I tried to do a UK tour, but it's really a tour of England. But if I say it's a tour of England, it sounds like it's a deliberate tour of England. Nationalist. So I have to say it's a UK tour, but it's all over the place.
Coincidentally, a tour of England.
Yes, accidentally, sort of coincidentally. Yeah. Nottingham, Leicester, London, Bath, Preston, Skegness, incredibly.
Bradford,
Harrogate, Bradford, Christ, St Albans. If you happen to be there, I doubt it, but if you're there, come.
do go and see it.
Maybe that should be my second goal for 2026. My first being finishing and turning in my PhD dissertation. Yeah, I think so. Unfortunately, I have to prioritize that. But the second would be to finally catch a show, because this is, I think, the third episode that we're doing after I came along with you, Ed. And I still haven't seen it in person. And
to Alexandra Palace. If you come on the 22nd of March, Ostara weekend at Alexandra Palace, not only will you see the show, but you'll also see Kjell Bratton. I don't think I pronounced his name very well. He's going to be doing some music. We might even, Dan, stop me if he's not stopping me. We might even do a live version of this very podcast in Alexandra Palace.
Oh my God, what?
Oh my God almighty. Yeah. And we're going to have a whole art gallery of Nordic art from our favorite Nordic art workers. There's going to be a whole Easter celebration of what we do in our stories. So we're there in Alexandra Palace all weekend. So come, if you're going to come, Mags, come that weekend, the 20th of March, 21st, 22nd.
Holy Loki.
Come over and check it the hell out.
Hopefully we get that over the line.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, maybe. I'll be there.
We can't even do an online episode correctly.
Also, can I just, for the chat, those listening live, I absolutely did know about this.
I did tell Max. If people would remember months ago,
there was a secret thing that we couldn't discuss.
Yeah, I did. We did.
I've known about this for ages.
We've just put it off.
The problem is that they're dealing with me, and I abjectly refuse to plan anything in the future because I don't believe that it exists. So I don't pay attention to it. And then it happens, and it's very difficult for me.
I think that's why our conversations are so great, Ed, when it's the three of us, because I have a feeling that we might have similar software installed in our brains.
Nice. Nice. It's the one where it's installing until it gets to 97% and then it stops. And you're like, wait, did it finish?
And then it remembers that it had to do something else, so it puts it off for a while, and then it comes back.
And it seems to work, but then it glitches, and you're like, well, I mean, it always got to 97%, and I never knew if it's finished installing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then suddenly it's at 10. But then you wait a minute, and it goes back to 97, so who the hell knows?
I think that's going to be the name of my book. If I ever release a book, it's going to be called It Seems Fine. Like a story of things that seem to sort of work out, but probably shouldn't have done. Anyway, you kept saying a Q&A, and I've been putting it off.
No, it's fine. So yeah, hopefully we will do a live show, which would be fantastic.
It'd be amazing.
Very special guests.
I mean,
would be.
How about I just book plane tickets and find myself somewhere to stay during that weekend anyway?
Yeah,
and then because I feel like it. I mean,
we'll do the weekend regardless, and then if we can pull off a.
Oh my God, Dan! Does that mean that we'll finally meet?
We will. We will.
Fucking hell!
Oh no!
There we go.
We'll meet in person. It'll all.
It's going to be
Ed. Sick. Do it. Come.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're coming regardless.
So many birds with one stone.
Mm-hmm. Ed, so where can people find the show? I guess your social media. Where do we send people?
mythosragnarok.com, or just like drunkenly slap it into Google. Like, I've been doing this for 5 years. You if you can't find me, just don't come, because you're just useless. Very easy to find us. On Instagram we're Mythos Theatre, because I'm going to do more shows than just Ragnarok. So Mythos Theatre in Instagram, Mythos Ragnarok everywhere else, or just flail wildly, and I'll probably you'll probably find me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There we go. Mags, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at ArcheoMags, Archeo with a K.
Perfect. And for me, Daniel_Farrand1, Horns Voting for the Business, and then Nordic Mythology podcast across the board. But go and check out YouTube, and you can see the chaos in 3D,
2D. In the visual medium.
Visual.
So people can see this as well as hear it?
Yeah.
Visual as well as auditory.
We can see you. Yeah.
Before we finish, right before we go to the Q&A, can I just finish off on a fun factoid?
Mm-hmm.
The circumference of the Earth is 40,000 miles.
I
looked it up. So you weren't.
5,000 was not all the way around. I thought people were gonna laugh at me. So like,
dude,
and that is regardless of whether you measure around the poles or the equator.
I drove 3,500 miles just to do the last Mythos tour in Vienna. So
I thought you were going to say you drove 3,000 miles just to sit and listen to this.
I did. That's why.
Just
I was late.